Good afternoon, and welcome to the Division III August webinar. I'm Jeff Myers with the NCAA Governance and Member Services staff, and along with her first appearance from behind the scenes to presenting today, I'll be presenting with Bryn Mangold, also the GMS staff. And today we're going to talk about the updates from our summer meetings, from the National SAAC meeting, as well as Management and President's Council. Just a reminder, if you have questions, submit them through the Q&A function, and we will try to answer those on this call or on this session as well. And we do expect this session to be posted by the end of the week, probably even a little sooner. So look forward to providing some updates and having a discussion with all of you. Bryn, we'll look at the next slide then. This is our agenda. Bryn will talk about the updates from the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and then I'll go through the Presidential and Management Council updates that you see listed there, and we'll get into those in just a moment. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bryn.
Thanks, Jeff. Like you said, I'm usually behind the scenes on these things, so excited to get my time to shine today. But I'm going to be walking you through some important National SAAC updates as we kick off another impactful year together. We've had a lot of momentum building behind the scenes, so I'm excited to share what we've been up to. During our July meeting, the committee received several updates across both Division III and association-wide landscape. We've covered key hot topics with NCAA staff that impact student athletes, including a congressional engagement update about the Protect College Sports Act. This is the latest federal college athletics legislation. So National SAAC chairs from Divisions 1, 2, and 3 have jointly submitted a letter to the Senate Commerce Committee expressing support for the act and highlighting key student-athlete priorities. Conference SAACs are encouraged to support these advocacy efforts by contacting their senators and sharing information on social media, and they have got templates for letters and all of the resources, so you can reach out to your National SAAC rep to get the ball rolling on that. SAAC was also presented with findings from the GOALS study, which stands for Growth Opportunities, Aspirations, and Learning of College Students. The discussion focused on student-athlete time demands, identity development through athletics, and the challenges of balancing academic and athletic responsibilities. SAAC explored how the findings from the GOALS study have informed legislation and rulemaking, as well as the factors influencing transfer decisions and other emerging trends shaping the student-athlete experience. So if you are interested in learning more, you can find their key findings on ncaa.org. National SAAC also reviewed updates to the revised Elite Scholar Athlete Awards and discussed the nomination and selection process. And cross-divisional SAAC representatives will continue working to ensure the student-athlete perspectives are reflected as the new award system is implemented this upcoming year. These topics are evolving fast, so stay engaged and informed as we head into the fall and the new school year. Next, with legislation, which is always a key focus for us. During our meeting, SAAC reviewed the initial slate of legislative proposals leading into the 2027 NCAA convention. We will revisit the proposals again during our fall video conference and begin gathering feedback from our conferences before taking official positions during our November meeting. So your feedback in the conference SAAC feedback is super important to us. We appreciate your work on that. Looking ahead to the 26-27 school year, our committee's focus is clear, empowering the student-athlete voice. With the support of administrators and campus staff, we want to build stronger relationships across our membership. So with that being said, all primary National SAAC reps should be communicating and introducing themselves to their campus and conference SAAC advisors, and they're currently tasked with updating our contact info sheet, so we are reaching out to the right people. And they should also be in regular communication with the conference and campus SAACs to share key information throughout the year. So you can find the full list of our updated conference reps on the D3 committees page on ncaa.org. And we are currently working to fill open positions beginning January of 2027. Next, we'll talk subcommittees. We've got some exciting updates here. SAAC solidified 2 subcommittees and 2 working groups for the upcoming academic year. First is SAAC 101. We will work on developing and updating our best practice guide and creating online resources to strengthen campus and conference SAACs. And then the D3 Download Subcommittee is back for another year. They work on educational content for social media around all things Division III, from sport offerings and key facts to understanding SAAC structure and in the national role. So it's a one-stop shop for all things D3. So be sure you're following D3 SAAC on Instagram to see those videos. We also created a policies and procedures working group, which will update our national SAAC governing documents, and then another working group for our virtual town hall, which will have our third one this fall. Stay tuned for the date on that, but working group will plan that for the fall. Next, Special Olympics. We're celebrating our 15th year of our partnership, and we're proud to share that nearly 3,000 student athletes in Division III have dedicated over 9,000 hours to Special Olympics activities this past year and have raised more than $17,000 in support. So let's keep that momentum going as we begin a new academic year. And reminder to submit your activities along with photos and any written stories to our Special Olympics reporting form on our website so we can share those on our platforms. And as student athletes return to campus and fall sports begin, let's keep showing up loudly and proudly for one another. So like I said, follow D3 SAAC and Division III on Instagram and social media to engage and reshare and celebrate the work that we're doing. As always, let's go Division III, and you can reach out to me, Ali Spungen, Becca Travato, or Jonathan Youngblood. We are the D3 SAAC advisors. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us. And I'll kick it back to Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Wonderful job. Now we're going to transition into council updates, and President's Council just met yesterday. So these are hot off the presses updates, and we're going to start with the budget. This is a culmination of a budget planning year for the next two fiscal years, 27 and 28. And these highlights go into effect starting September 1 of this year. And Brandon, if we can go to the next slide. And a couple of highlights. First, they approved photographers at individual team championships. So we'll have more days of photography at those championships, and you'll have more access to the photos at those championships. Also, there was an increase in the champs per diem up to 160, as well as an increase of officiating fees by 5% over the next two years. And of course, we have the first women's wrestling Division III championship in 28, as well as the joint women's basketball championship in 28. We are in the process of creating new public service announcements specific for Division III to highlight the unique Division III experience to be played at championships as well, and continuing stipends for live streaming, health and safety grants, mental health first aid training, as well as a new grant for athletics communications. And now transition into Division III analysis, which continues to move forward. Management Council and President's Council endorsed a path forward on several items that were identified by the working group. Those items, 12 of which were referred to Division III committees, 9 which will stay with the working group, and 5 that are more appropriate for the membership to review. These items can be detailed more in the on the D3 analysis webpage from the June working group report, and they'll be highlighted further on that page as well. Again, these are items meant to address and mitigate some of the tensions identified through the working group analysis. And working group will again meet tomorrow with the endorsement of President's Council on these referrals. The working group will start working at providing additional direction to the committees on evaluating these items. For example, how they impact or are impacted by the philosophy statement. What is the financial implications of these different items and approaches? So they will work on giving that framework for these committees to engage in the review. The other thing the working group will begin doing is looking at fundamental issues and case studies on how to evaluate those fundamental issues. So think about age-based eligibility. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Name, image, and likeness, and membership segmentation. But look at developing a framework for the membership to engage in conversations on these topics and to ensure that they're looking at it from all angles. Well, it's summer, and for those meetings, that means the legislative review. The deadline for membership sponsor proposals was July 1st, and for governance sponsor proposals, they need to be approved by the Management Council at this meeting. There's only two proposals that are coming through the governance structure of this legislative cycle. The first would establish a national collegiate championship for flag football, and that'll be voted on by all three divisions. The other has to do with agents, allowing agents before initial enrollment, focusing on for prospective student athletes and whether or not they've engaged in agents and what that impact is for Division III eligibility upon enrollment. The membership has submitted 7 proposals, and there's a little bit of an asterisk there because one proposal did not receive full sponsorship before July 1 that it needed. However, with the new legislative process that was put in play last year, there is still an opportunity to get that sponsorship by September 15th. That proposal was submitted by institutions. They can get 20 institutions from 4 different conferences. If they get that before the September 15th deadline, they still could have it go forward. And that has to do with championships results. If an individual was deemed ineligible after the championship and whether or not those individuals that placed would have any changes based on an individual's eligibility. That's the one that's not mentioned here. The others that are coming have to do with Management Council and President's Council composition. Specifically, when a vacancy is created, at what point in time can that vacancy be filled by a member of that conference? Also, two, regarding the legislative process, one that has to do with a limited window of reconsideration. As you know, the window of reconsideration was eliminated several years ago. This would bring it back in a limited form. And the second would identify certain bylaws as division dominant. Division dominant means for Division III, these are bylaws that are of such importance that the membership believes requires a 2/3 vote of the membership to amend. Also have the age-based eligibility proposal, and I will get to that in the next slide. There's also 2 related to spring football, one submitted by a conference, and another submitted by institutional sponsorship, and both would amend the spring football seasons in different ways. And the last one has to do with expansion of the multi-day contest exemptions for track and field. I do want to highlight here, we are within the comment period. So it's an opportunity for you all to go in and look at these membership sponsor proposals. If you have questions for the sponsors, if you have thoughts about them, please go in and give them your thoughts. It'll help develop a better process as we get closer to the 27 convention. With the age-based eligibility, as we saw on the last slide, we know that Division I has adopted a new eligibility model called the age-based eligibility. Division II will be considering it this week. Division I is effective for this academic year. Again, Division II is considering it. And in short, what this does is it creates a window of eligibility at their level based on the earlier of their first time full-time collegiate enrollment or the academic year after their 19th birthday. Again, that's the start of that window, and that window is 5 years. And student athletes are eligible during that 5 years, whether they compete 1 or 5, is just the window in which they can participate in athletics. Because of that, Division III, as we saw before, there is a conference-sponsored proposal to also establish the similar eligibility model, but it will not be in effect for this academic year. And so a couple things have taken place through the governance structure to address some of the differences that at least Division I with their eligibility, as well as potentially Division II. So specifically, Management Council approved an interpretation that said how to address student athletes that may transfer from a division in which seasons are not recognized, and how Division III institutions are supposed to certify those individuals. Also, the Student Athlete Reinstatement Committee made it clear that those student athletes that transfer, while they don't have access to waivers at the Division I level and potentially Division II if they adopt this model, they would have access to waivers at the Division III, and we processed under Division III rules. And as we mentioned before, the D3 analysis working group is engaging in review of the age-based eligibility model and what are the issues to focus on. And the council, management council specifically, also engaged in a discussion about age-based eligibility. I'm going to pause here. Bryn, are there any questions in the Q&A? I am not seeing any.
No questions yet.
All right, so we will move on. The next is student athlete reinstatement. Management Council approved a recommendation from student athlete reinstatement to add to one of their directives, really direction on how to deal with student athletes that may have a gambling problem. And specifically, the purpose behind this was, how do you best help student athletes to come forward if they have questions, if they have concerns? And this approach is really to remove hurdles, remove walls from student athletes coming forward, or their teammates or friends to come forward on their behalf. And what it does, it says simply that if a student athlete does have, is engaged in sports wagering that's currently a violation of the NCAA bylaws, that if it's their first violation, if it's a violation that does not involve integrity concerns, meaning it doesn't impact a game that they are playing in, it has no impact on a game that they're involved in, and the student athlete engages or seeks clinical evaluations, that student athlete could have their penalty reduced or eradicated. And again, the purpose is to encourage student athletes to come forward, to encourage students to engage with clinical professionals to get a better understanding of these issues. And hopefully this is to remove some of the hurdles to that process. The next issue that Management Council discussed, as well as President's Council, was the championships alcohol policy. This is an ongoing discussion. Nothing has changed currently from the policy that prohibits alcohol sales at Division III championships. But they're looking at potentially changing that policy and seeking outreach from the membership. Councils will evaluate that membership or that outreach from the membership at the fall meetings and ultimately determine if a change should be needed. The reason they're looking at this issue is based on a Deloitte review that was done a couple of years ago that talked about potentially reviewing this policy as a means of increasing attendance at our championship and potential revenue streams. So stay tuned on this issue. This will be continued to discuss as we move into the fall. The next policy that the council's endorsed was the Senior Campus Leadership Initiative, again endorsed by the President's Council, centered around increasing engagement of campus senior leaders, focused on programming for senior leaders that they would be interested in, intersects with NCAA and sports management. Again, this is consistent with some issues that were identified by the Division III working group and the membership input, and will continue to move forward as we go into next year. The last issue I want to talk about before we open it up to questions is the Athletic Trainer Connect program. Again, this is an ongoing issue that the Management Council is taking a look at as potentially a way of engaging athletic trainers in the governance process. Certainly the athletic training concerns have been an issue of importance for the division for several years now. And this is talking about a way to better engage this group to help them understand the processes within the NCAA and to hear about their concerns and to engage in that outreach. Council will review this concept again in October. So another issue to stay tuned to as we move into the fall. Well, with that, you can pause and see if there is any questions about the updates from the councils or National SAAC?
Corey has a question. She said, where do I go if I have questions for the proposal sponsors? And what if I have a suggestion to make the proposal better?
Wonderful question, Corey. And again, that is to go into the comment period or the comment section. So we are within the comment period. It's wide open as far as what you can provide in those sections. You can ask questions as to its application, offer suggestions, inquire as to why something is an immediate effective date as opposed to an August 1st effective date. How would this impact your institution? We really encourage more discussion in there to, again, create a better process and better discussion when we get to the convention in January. So that would be the place to go with that. Thank you, Corey.
Can you see Brian's question?
Can now. I was blocked for a minute. Question: how are transfer student athletes who transfer from Division III to Division I going to be evaluated for eligibility? Would they be eligible to participate a fifth year at Division I even after exhausting Division III eligibility? So the first piece on that is to certainly inquire with the Division I institutions that they're thinking about transferring to, because where they have said for current student athletes that are transferring, they would have the benefit of either the old model, the old Division I model, or the new age-based model, whichever benefits that student athlete more. So that would be one piece you'd have to take a look at. And they'll evaluate it under one of those two models. I think the other piece that meant to note that forgot to earlier is, along with the age-based model, the student athletes from Division III that no longer have eligibility at the close of the 25-26 academic year, so either out of semesters or out of seasons, cannot transfer to Division I. That window is closed for those student athletes. I think that gets to Brian's question. The other thing I would note is, along with the interpretation that Management Council issued regarding how to evaluate a Division I to Division III transfer student athlete, there will be an ed column that comes out to provide further guidance in that place. So I'll stop there, Bryn, and see if there's other questions.
Not seeing any more questions.
Maybe wait another moment, and if not, we can. There might be another question that was posted. The question is, are the presidents and/or ADR sessions a continuation of what is already being implemented, or will there be more programming? There will be more programming. There'll be more focused efforts on addressing and engaging both of those groups on everything from what are the convention proposals for this year to how to interact with athletics on your campus. So there will be more programming than what's currently there. Well, again, this session will be posted, and as soon as I get into it, again, this session should be posted no later than end of this week, probably sooner. And Bryn, give it another moment, and if no other questions, I think we can sign off. I want to thank you all for the questions, and hope you have a great what's left of your summer. Thank you all.